Alright, what's going on everyone, and welcome back to Brewbuilds. My name is Rob, and today I've got a fun project for you. But let me ask, does your current craft table hinder your motivation to get out there and craft? Me too. So in today's video, I'll be building a craft table with a floating top, 2 slide-out drawers, and 6 adjustable shelves that should suit all your crafting needs. So with that being said, let's get after it. To build this craft table, I'll be using 4 sheets of Baltic birch for the carcasses and a sheet of 3/4 inch birch for the tabletop. This is kind of a back and forth game between my track saw and my table saw. It's nice to break these larger sheets down with my track saw so I can manage them on the table saw by myself, and then also it allows me to keep my table saw fence in the same location. During these builds, it's always important to celebrate the small victories. While I'm trimming these pieces down, I typically keep them a little long, so as my construction progresses, if I was off a little bit on my measurements, I can accommodate these by trimming them as I build. Through the breakdown process, I numbered all my components, that way I can organize them at the end to ensure that I didn't miss anything. So now that all my components are cut out, I'll be laying out all the pocket holes and my shelf pin holes, which should make it easier for my assembly. This is a pretty pocket hole heavy project, and I like using this Craig R3 setup. I find it to be a little bit quicker and it's easier with these longer sheets or bigger sheets of plywood. Now I'm using just a scrap piece of plywood as a fence, so when I go to screw the components together, you don't get the slippage when you go to join the boards. They do have a clamp and I use that occasionally, but I find this to be a little bit easier and a little bit quicker, but I kind of use them both at the same time. After the first shelf is done, it's a simple rinse and repeat operation for the remaining 3. Now that the one side of these 4 shelves is screwed into place, I'll add the other side of this carcass on top and then use these plywood spacers to make sure I've got even spacing in my shelves. Now that carcass 1 is done, it's time to move on to carcass 2. It's got a little bit more going on. This is where I'm going to have some adjustable shelves, so I've got to drill my shelf pinholes in place, which I got a little carried away. I kind of did this on the fly and kind of double guessed my measurements and ended up making a few mistakes here. You might be able to point them out coming up, but this first row of holes I drilled and then thought I screwed it up when in actuality they were correct, so I came back and made another mistake round of holes and whatnot, but since this has a painted finish on it, I just came back and filled those holes and no one will even see it. So a couple of these pieces have pocket holes on one side to secure the boards and shelf pin holes on the other side. So now I'm laying out the pocket holes to line up in between my shelf pin holes so there's no interference when I go to actually cut the pocket holes here. So I'm going to do the bottom of this carcass a little bit differently. With only having 4 sheets of plywood to work with, I wasn't able to get enough material to make this one solid piece, so I made it out of 3 individual pieces. In between each of these 3 pieces, I left 1/2-inch gaps, so these vertical walls will actually be able to slide in between them and get glued and screwed together to make it a whole assembly. Along with that, I used a couple of the shelf components to act as spacers, so when I glued and screwed these vertical walls into place, they would stay uniform in their spacing so I wouldn't have any interference when I went to go slide my shelves in. Once both walls are glued and screwed, I can remove the shelf spacers and get ready to glue the 2 faces on. On either end, it's got shelving, and then in the center of the front, it's also got shelving. So it'll have the two face pieces and the open section there. That'll be another set of shelves. And now it's just a matter of gluing the top of this carcass down, and it'll be complete. This is where it gets interesting. I wanted to add a little depth to this tabletop and have it appear to be floating and not just be a piece of plywood screwed down to the two bases. So what I'll be making is a multi-part box frame system. There'll be a box frame that screws down to both the top sides of the carcasses, along with corresponding box frames that screw down to the underside of the tabletop. This will give the depth, and it will help me realign the tabletop to the bases when I go and reassemble this craft table in our office. Along with that, it'll be a good spot to screw the top down to the two bases and pull the top nice and flat. And also, this is where the two drawers will be fastened to this craft table. It'll make more sense here in a minute. To finish this frame system off, I'll be attaching the two inner pieces where the 4 drawer slides will eventually get screwed to. Now that the two bases are complete, it's time to cut the tabletop out. So this is 3/4 inch birch plywood, and to give it a little bit more depth, I'm going to be adding 20-degree bevels on all 4 sides. After the bevels were cut, I then assembled the corresponding box frames that'll be screwed to the underside of this tabletop that I was talking about earlier. These box frames will sit inside the box frames that I assembled on top of the 2 carcasses.
Holy shit, I can't believe it worked.
Now that everything's assembled, it's time to get some paint on it. With everything dry fit and painted up, it's now time to assemble these drawers. I kept these fairly simple. I just cut a 1/4 inch dado into 3 of the sides, then glued and brad nailed those sides together, and then slid in a 1/4 inch piece of MDF as the drawer bottoms. Mounting the drawers is a little bit more tricky. I'm used to having multiple rows of drawers that you can kind of shim off of, so I made a custom jig to support the drawer while I lined up the drawer slides and then screwed it to the drawer itself. It actually worked out fairly well. Oh hey, so this craft table is complete. It should suit all my wife's crafting needs. It's 4 feet wide by 5 feet long, and it's 35 inches tall. It's got 2 pull-out drawers, 6 adjustable shelves, and a floating top. And at the last minute, I decided to have this custom piece of 1/4 inch glass cut for the top of it. If you're interested in building this same craft table, I've got a 35-page set of detailed, color-coded, and numbered plans that are available. The link for those will be in my description below. And while we're talking about plans, a few months back I built this farmhouse desk for my wife and provided a set of plans for that, and a couple of viewers sent me their finished product pictures. The first one is from Kedros Custom Builds. They used my plans and built this farmhouse desk. It looks great, guys. Thanks for building it. And the second one is from D&C Custom Creations. They also used my plans to build their farmhouse desk. Looks great, guys. Thanks for sending me the pictures. So there you have it. Go ahead and craft your little hearts out, and if you haven't already, please hit that like and the subscribe button, and I'll catch you on the next one.